The corridor smelled of bleach and rusted iron, a mix that clung to the skin like guilt. Linda Wells, whose real name was Riley Dawson, walked in step with the guards, wrists cuffed, ankles shackled, pulse deliberate. Fluorescent tubes flickered overhead, carving harsh shadows across peeling green paint. Behind her eyes worked another kind of light, sharp and unwavering, recording every creak of the hinges, every jab of a baton against the bars. Down the hall, a door banged open. A young nurse in pale scrubs stumbled backward, her cheeks streaked with tears. Officer Miller advanced, taller than the doorframe, baton tapping his palm.
"Discipline check,"
he drawled.
"Strip search and medical clearance."
The nurse shook her head.
"She's barely 19, sir. She hasn't done anything."
Miller's lips twisted.
"Rules apply to everyone."
He seized the nurse by the elbow and shoved her aside. On the gurney lay the trembling girl, hands clenched around a thin blanket. Her brown eyes found Riley. "Help me," they pleaded without sound. Riley's feet moved before the thought finished forming. Chains clanked. She stepped between Miller and the gurney, narrow shoulders squared. The microcamera, hidden inside her faux pearl necklace, vibrated. Battery flashing red, 60 seconds left.
"Back to your cell, widow,"
Miller sneered.
"This ain't your concern."
"It is if you intend to break the law,"
Riley said, calm as a winter pond. Gasps rose from two orderlies watching by the cabinets. No inmate confronted Miller, not unless she had a death wish. Miller's baton arced upward. Riley braced, jaw tight. The nurse cried out. Light exploded behind Riley's eyes as hardwood cracked against her ribs. Pain burned white, but she stayed upright, absorbing the blow like a pillar in a storm. The necklace winked red again, then dark. Memory storage full. Miller saw the flicker. His gaze slid to the pearls. Something calculating stirred there.
"What's that jewelry doing on state property?"
he asked.
"A reminder of my husband."
Riley replied, voice thin with pain.
"Then you won't miss it."
Miller reached. She stepped back, chains rasping. Her heel hit the gurney wheel. The young patient whimpered. Miller lunged, fingers closing on the clasp. Riley twisted, presenting the cuffs as barrier. He yanked anyway. The strand snapped, beads scattering across the linoleum like raindrops. The camera bounced under a cabinet, lens staring up at flickering lights. Miller's baton rose again for a finishing swing. The nurse darted forward. "Stop!" she shouted, shielding Riley with her body. Miller paused, nostrils flaring. His authority had been challenged twice in 30 seconds. He lowered the baton with a grunt, eyes promising retribution later.
"Clean this mess,"
he told the orderlies.
"and keep your mouth shut."
He strode out. The door clanged. Riley's knees buckled. She caught the edge of a counter and forced herself upright. The nurse steadied her.
"Thank you,"
Riley whispered.
"Name's Dina. You won't last a week here if you keep poking bears,"
Dina said, voice shaking. Riley let her eyes linger on the cabinet where the camera lay unseen.
"Sometimes the bear needs poking."
Outside, Boots approached, guards coming to escort Riley. Dina grabbed a handful of loose pearls, pressing them into Riley's cuffed hands.
"Hide them.
She murmured.
Whatever they are, I think you'll need them."
The door burst open. Two officers hauled Riley away towards solitary, chains dragging a slow metallic lament down the corridor. Behind her, the infirmary light flickered, casting brief strobe images of Dina kneeling to check on the trembling girl, pearls glinting like fallen teeth. And in the gloom beneath the cabinet, the dead camera kept its final secret, recording nothing but dust and anticipation. The sky above Quantico wore the flat gray of unfinished business when Riley Dawson crossed the parking lot, trench coat flaring in the March wind. Inside Building 12, a briefing room buzzed with the low thrum of fluorescent lamps and colder conversations. On the screen, a photograph glowed, a blonde woman staring blankly at a booking camera. Tear tracks dried on her cheeks. The caption read, "Rachel Morales, age 27, deceased." Director Keller tapped the remote.
3 weeks after release from Rockford Women's, Morales overdosed. Coroner ruled suicide. Yesterday, her sister delivered this.
He held up an envelope. Inside lay 6 pages of cramped handwriting and a flash drive. Officer Miller runs a discipline program after dark. He keeps lists. He sells women. Riley's pulse hammered. Images of her own sister, lost, brave, betrayed, flared in her mind like magnesium. Keller's gaze swept the room.
We need eyes inside. A month at most. Strict evidence collection. No heroics.
Silence replied. No one volunteered. Undercover in a prison was a career minefield. Riley lifted her hand.
I'll go.
Keller frowned.
You've led 3 collar and tie stings. Never deep cover.
All predators share a scent, she said. I can smell this one from here.
Paperwork accelerated. A new identity assembled. Linda Wells, 36, forged conviction for insurance fraud, sentence 18 months. A funeral band for a husband lost to a bar fight. A necklace of imitation pearls, 8th one, hollowed for a pinhole lens. Agent Hank Sullivan met her outside evidence lockup. He pressed a transmitter the size of a matchbook into her palm.
Hidden in the heel.
He explained.
1 press for upload, 2 for distress.
He hesitated.
You sure about this? After what happened to Michelle?
Riley zipped her duffel.
That's why I'm sure.
Dawn bled pastel pink when a U.S. Marshal van collected her. Shackles clamped, paperwork stamped, world narrowed to a rectangle of wire-screened window revealing highway blur. At the Rockford gate, the sun crouched low behind watchtowers. Concrete walls rose like dried bone. Guards with mirrored sunglasses watched the van roll in, indifferent as statues of forgotten gods. Intake reeked of ammonia and stale coffee. Nurse Dina Lopez recorded blood pressure, noting Riley's steady 118/78.
You look too calm.
Dina said, scribbling.
Grief's a sedative.
Riley answered, eyes down. A fingerprint, a mugshot flash, a plastic bin for belongings. Brixton, a stocky guard with wary brown eyes, tagged Riley's duffel.
Welcome to Rockford, widow.
Brixton muttered, not unkind. Finally, Officer Miller appeared for classification. His badge gleamed. His smile never reached his eyes. He circled Riley like a crow, reading paperwork that labeled her non-violent.
She'll do.
He murmured to no one in particular. Riley felt the chill of being chosen and filed the sensation next to the memory of soft magnesium light in Quantico. That evening, she lay on a narrow bunk in cell B12 while whispers drifted through vents. Girls trading commissary coffee for care packages, others sobbing into thin blankets. Somewhere distant, metal rang against metal in a slow, deliberate rhythm, like a smith forging dread into shape. Sleep came at last, fractured and shallow. In a dream, Michelle sat at the foot of her bunk, clutching a file folder marked closed, 2019.
You can't fix the dead,
Michelle said, voice echoing like rain in a drainpipe.
I can stop more from joining you.
Riley replied. When morning whistles blared, Dream Michelle vanished, leaving only cold resolve in her wake. 2 days later, Riley entered the infirmary for mandatory checkup and saw Miller already there, baton in hand. The young patient shivered on the gurney. The nurse's eyes brimmed with fear. A hidden camera whirred inside a single faux pearl, battery green. The bear had appeared, and Riley Dawson stepped forward to poke it. Solitary was a cement box painted in despair. No window, no clock, only a vent exhaling recycled chill and a steel door with a flap for food trays. Riley lay on the slab of a bed, counting heartbeats to mark time. Every inhale jabbed her side where the baton had landed. Exhale tasted of iron from a split lip. Hours or years passed before the flap opened and a paper cup slid in with 2 chalky aspirin. A finger tapped once, twice. Riley rose, chains clinking. Through the slit, she saw Dina's eye, dark, intent.
Hold the cup up.
Dina whispered. Riley obeyed. Dina slipped a folded scrap of paper beneath the cup.
Night visits cost 3 packs of smokes. Lists kept in Miller's locker. Find them before he does.
Bootsteps echoed. Dina vanished. A bell clanged. Guards opened the cell, cuffs locked again. They marched Riley to the showers, then to the yard. Afternoon sun sliced the sky but failed to warm the cold stares of inmates who had heard rumors of an insolent newcomer. Near the bleachers, Riley sat slow, ribs protesting. She let her gaze wander without seeming to, mapping cameras. Half were dead, their lenses gray with dust. She fished 2 loose pearls from her pocket, remnants of the camera necklace. The micro SD still intact hid inside one bead. She palmed it. Beside her, a tall woman with neck tattoos spat.
"You're the widow who mouths off, huh? People say Miller's gunning for you."
Riley said nothing. The woman shrugged.
"Name's Piper. Anyone who stands to Miller's face gets my vote, but votes cost favors.
What favors?
A carton of menthols gets you a working phone for 5 minutes.
Riley weighed the offer. Too risky. She needed a secure line, not a contraband gamble. That night, back in general population, Piper's bunk partner coughed blood after chow. Chaos erupted. While guards herded inmates toward the wall, Riley slipped through laundry carts to the service corridor. The heel transmitter in her shoe buzzed once, finding the maintenance Wi-Fi repeater she had spotted during intake. She bent as if tying a lace, pressed the transmitter. The micro SD upload began, status vibrating lightly against her arch. 30 seconds felt like standing in open sniper sights. Footsteps approached. Brixton rounded the corner, flashlight low.
Lost widow?
She asked.
Looking for medical.
Riley answered, voice flat. Brixton's beam lingered on Riley's battered cheek, then on her mismatched shoes. She said nothing more, merely motioned toward the main hall. Upload complete. Transmitter cooled, evidence away. Lights out sounded. Riley settled onto her bunk. Pain needled her ribs with every breath, yet adrenaline hummed through veins like distant thunder. Metal scratched. A hand slid under her pillow. Dina's. She whispered.
I know you're no widow.
Riley tensed.
You take notes, hide cameras, never panic. Cops do that.
Dina said. Riley considered denial. Instead, she asked,
If I am, do you want me gone or do you want justice?
Dina's silence swelled like a held breath. Finally, she answered,
Justice. But if he smells a rat, we both die.
Riley exhaled.
Then we move fast.
Outside the barred window, a storm gathered, clouds bruising the moon. Somewhere distant, an engine revved. Miller's late-night patrol, hunting contraband souls. Inside bunk B12, 2 women forged an alliance in the dark, bruises already yellowing into resolve. And in a maintenance closet across the yard, a green LED on a hidden router blinked, sending their first whisper of revolt into the night beyond Rockford's walls. Miller prowled the tier before dawn, keys clinking like warning bells. Riley watched from her bunk, counting his footsteps. Beside her, Dina pressed a fingertip to the page of a worn paperback. It covered a slip of paper listing locker numbers, the rumored ledgers of night visits. After breakfast, lockdown lifted. Riley limped to laundry duty, Dina trailing. They pushed wire carts piled with sheets toward the boiler room where the Wi-Fi repeater hissed a faint electronic hum. Riley knelt to untangle a knotted sheet, slipped the micro SD from her waistband into a pillowcase, and fed it to the industrial washer. A moment later, the repeater's LED blinked amber, automatic upload in progress. Sudden shouts erupted in the corridor. 2 guards burst in, radios crackling.
Cell shakedown, code gray.
One barked. Miller followed, eyes sweeping the room until they fixed on Riley. He strode over, grabbing her shoulder.
Laundry can wait. Warden wants every inch searched.
Riley forced a meek nod and let herself be herded back, heart pounding. In the cell block, mattresses flipped, lockers overturned. Brixton supervised, her gaze flicking between guards and inmates like a wary fox. Miller yanked Riley's mattress. Nothing. He ripped a seam, foam snowing onto the floor. Dina's locker came next. Miller scattered photographs of a child on a beach. Dina lunged to protect them, and a guard hooked her arms. Riley felt the choice stab, intervene and blow cover or watch. She stayed still, rage hardening like tar. Sirens wailed beyond the walls. Guards froze. The warden's voice thundered from the PA, ordering Miller to report to intake. Confusion rippled. 5 minutes later, television sets in the Commons flashed breaking news. Exclusive, abuse allegations at Rockford Women's Correctional. Blurred footage of Miller dragging a prisoner filled the screen. Inmates erupted, some cheering, some sobbing. Dina turned to Riley, eyes wide.
That's your video.
She breathed. Riley answered only with a quick squeeze of Dina's wrist. Miller returned cuffed between two state troopers, face gray with fury. As they let him out, he twisted to glare at Riley. His mouth shaped words only she could read. I was paid to. The cell block buzzed with electric hope, but Riley felt the ground shift beneath it. Predators rarely hunted alone. That night, a black SUV rolled through the gate. A tall man in a crisp suit stepped out, silver pin on his lapel. Hayes for Senate. He strode past the line of guards as though the prison already belonged to him. From her window, Riley watched headlights carve the yard, and dread spread across her ribs, deeper than any bruise. Who replaces a monster on such short notice? Down the corridor, a door slammed. The TVs flickered off. The block fell into sudden darkness. A single thought cut the black. The leak worked. But something worse just crawled through the hole. Morning roll call was conducted by strangers in unmarked uniforms. The new interim warden, Whitlock, addressed the women from the catwalk, voice smooth as varnish.
Rockford is under reform. Cooperate and your stay will improve.
Riley noted the senator's pin gleaming on his lapel. Whitlock's gaze snagged on her bruised face before moving on. After count, Dina was summoned for evaluation. Riley followed the escort line, but a guard barred her. Dina glanced back, panic flaring. The door slammed, swallowing her. Brixton approached Riley in the laundry corridor, voice low.
Whitlock's transferring problem cases off books. Word is they ride out tonight.
Where?
An old ranch property. They call it Hope Haven.
Hayes's charity.
Riley muttered. Brixton slipped a folded note.
Map of the loading dock. End of shift, meet me.
Lunch brought a surprise. Commissary credits deposited into several inmates' accounts, more than most earned in months. Rumor said Whitlock wanted calm. Some cheered, others stayed silent, sensing the bribe. Riley watched women line up for chocolate bars while Dina remained missing. That evening, Whitlock toured the tiers flanked by guards. He paused at Riley's cell.
Mrs. Wells,
He said, voice friendly.
transitions can be unsettling. Accept the new order and you'll find it comfortable.
Riley lowered her eyes, hiding the spark of defiance. Whitlock smiled softly. Good. He walked on. End of shift, Riley slipped to the loading dock. Diesel trucks idled, cages welded inside. Brixton emerged from behind stacks of detergent, thrusting a flash drive into Riley's palm.
Security cam pulls,
She said.
Girls loaded like cargo. Timestamps match transfers for state grant audits.
What about Dina?
Manifest says she's on tonight's run.
An engine revved. Guards dragged Dina, wrists zip-tied toward a van. She was gagged, eyes swollen. Riley started forward, but Brixton grabbed her arm.
Too many rifles.
Brixton hissed.
You jump now, you die.
The van doors slammed. Dina's muffled cry died in steel. Convoy rolled toward the gate, taillights bleeding red across cracked pavement. Riley swallowed a wild scream. Whitlock's voice echoed in memory. Comfortable. She pocketed the drive.
Then we pull the comfort out from under them.
She whispered. Above, yard lamps buzzed to life, casting long shadows that looked like prison bars across the free night sky. Midnight settled thick and metallic. Riley met Brixton outside the infirmary, both clad in stolen maintenance coveralls. Brixton jimmied the lock. They slipped inside a hush of antiseptic and fear. At the back stood a server rack festooned with cables. Brixton typed while Riley scanned drawers. She found a ledger stuffed behind a defibrillator. Dates, inmate numbers, cigarette payments, destination codes. On the monitor video, thumbnails bloomed, grainy footage of women herded into vans, then into bunkhouses under floodlights. Whitlock appeared in several frames, shaking hands with ranch staff. Riley's chest tightened when a paused frame showed a younger woman, blonde, thin. Michelle Dawson, file tag, program terminated 2019. Pain blurred her sight. She forced air into lungs, copied every directory to the flash drive.
Got it.
Brixton said. Lights died. Generators groaned silent. Footsteps thudded down the corridor. Flashlight beams sliced the dark. Brixton yanked a floor hatch, ushered Riley into a crawl space that smelled of rust and earth. They pulled the hatch just as the door crashed open above. In the black tunnel, Brixton's voice trembled.
Backup batteries last 5 minutes. We're ghosts until then.
Riley's mind raced.
We need Hank. External send.
Server's off.
The repeater in the boiler room has its own battery.
They crawled, knees scraping metal. Air tasted of copper. Sweat stung Riley's ribs. Behind them, muffled orders barked, guards searching. They surfaced near the boiler. Riley jammed the flash drive into the repeater port. Status LEDs glowed, blue pulse steady. Upload began. A klaxon blared, power restored. Their faces lit azure, heavy boots pounded closer. Brixton thrust a folded blueprint into Riley's jumpsuit.
Sewer tunnel under cell block D. It leads outside the fence.
Come with me,
Riley urged.
I'll buy time.
Brixton grabbed a wrench, squared her shoulders.
Fine, Dina. Burn the whole thing down.
Guards rounded the corner. Brixton swung. Metal met helmet with a banshee clang. Riley sprinted, blueprint slapping her chest, alarm shrieking overhead. She dove through laundry chutes, burst into the yard where searchlights splayed across razor wire. Rain began, fat drops hammering dust into mud. In that storm, Riley felt threads knot together. Miller's confession, Whitlock's bribes, Michelle's face, Dina's scream. One rope now, pulling her toward a reckoning. She glanced back once. Guards swarmed the corridor where Brixton fought. Lightning split the sky, freezing the scene into stark relief. Lone guard against a flood of uniforms. Riley turned and ran for Block D, heart drumming with a single vow. No one else leaves in a cage. The metal grate beneath cell block D groaned as Riley pried it open, rainwater sloshing around her boots. She plunged into the tunnel, a low concrete vein that pulsed with echoes of distant alarms. The blueprint Brixton had shoved at her lay memorized in her mind. A left turn at the rust-stained junction, 40 paces to a maintenance hatch, then up into an abandoned disciplinary wing. She emerged inside a corridor cloaked in darkness, except for exit signs glowing red like half-shuttered eyes. A single cot sat against the wall. Dina lay on it, wrists still zip-tied, lips cracked, eyes unfocused. Visible beneath fluorescent flicker, fresh bruises mottled her arms. Riley rushed forward, slicing the ties with the jagged edge of a vent cover. Dina's voice rasped.
Thought you were gone.
Not without you,
Riley said, forcing warmth into her tone, even as her gaze swept the hall for threats. She eased Dina to her feet.
Can you walk?
Give me a reason.
Dina whispered. Riley handed her a small flash drive from her pocket.
This holds every ledger, every route, every face. Your testimony completes it. We bring them down together.
Footsteps thundered on a lower stairwell. Riley dragged a steel filing cabinet across the doorway, wedging it under the knob. A pounding started immediately. She guided Dina through the warren until they reached a janitor's closet. Inside, a hatch in the ceiling led to an attic crawl space, lined with dusty insulation. Above it, vents opened to the roof. Riley hoisted Dina first, then hauled herself up, shoulders burning. Cold night air sliced across their faces as they crawled out onto tar paper. Sirens wailed at the far end of the yard where guards clustered around Block C, drawn off by Brixton's decoy riot. Floodlights had failed on this side of the compound, leaving only moonlight. Riley pressed the heel transmitter once. Upload. The tiny device vibrated, sending the ghost tape to Hank Sullivan's secure server. A red LED winked acknowledgement. Almost instantly, the transmitter pulsed twice. Hank's distress code back to her. She knew what it meant. Abort mission, extraction ready. Dina read the tension in Riley's jaw.
They want you out.
My sister's name was on those files, Riley said. Hayes won't walk away. Neither can I.
She looked past the fence to the black horizon where a dirt road snaked into woods. That road led to Hope Haven Ranch, tonight's departure point for the next shipment of women.
You still have that reason?
She asked. Dina straightened, swaying but determined.
Let's end this.
Voices rose below. A spotlight swung toward the roof. Riley and Dina flattened behind an HVAC unit. The beam washed past, then retreated. Wind whipped at their jumpsuits. Riley's mind carved a path forward. Reach the west wall, slip through the drainage culvert Brixton's blueprint marked, meet Hank 2 miles out, then pivot straight to the ranch before the convoy arrived. She gripped Dina's hand.
Stay low. Don't stop, no matter what.
They slid over the edge and vanished into the night as boots pounded up to the roof. Too late to catch the ghosts already running outside the wire. A spotlight flared behind them and a rifle cracked, splintering gravel at their heels. Pine branches tore at their sleeves while they pushed through the tree line beyond Rockford's perimeter. Thunder rumbled overhead, promising another storm. Ahead, headlights flared on the service road, an unmarked SUV idling. Hank Sullivan stepped out, trench coat snapping in the gusts.
Jesus, Riley, you were supposed to be on the chopper,
he said, scanning her injuries. Then he noticed Dina, blood-dried and unsteady.
You both need medevac.
Later,
Riley said, shoving the flash drive into his hand.
Hayes is moving them tonight. Hope Haven Ranch.
Hank checked his watch.
Convoy's ETA 60 minutes. SWAT team staged 40 miles south. I can scramble them, but we need eyes in first.
I'm already dressed for the occasion,
Riley replied. Hank tried to argue, but Riley's stare ended it. He moved to the SUV, retrieving tactical vests and earpieces. Dina accepted a vest 2 sizes too big.
You're really letting an inmate tag along?
Hank muttered.
She's witness and partner,
Riley said, loading a 9mm.
Besides, she knows Miller's drop-off routine.
Dark asphalt bled under their tires as Hank sped west. Rain returned, drumming the windshield. In the back seat, Riley briefed Dina on the plan. Infiltrate the ranch, posing as overflow security. Plant trackers on vehicles, open the gates for SWAT. They reached a gravel turnout overlooking the ranch's silhouette. Floodlit barns, corrugated dorms, a central farmhouse flying the state flag. Helicopter blades thudded atop a distant hill pad, rotors idling. Through binoculars, Riley counted 4 armed men near the barn, 2 by the main gate, and more patrolling with dogs. A convoy had not yet arrived. Hank's radio crackled.
Unit Bravo en route, 20 minutes.
Riley popped the door.
We go now.
She and Dina hiked down a drainage ditch and slipped onto the property through a gap under barbed wire where rain had eroded soil. Mud swallowed their footsteps. They crept to a long shed and ducked inside. The stench of diesel and bleach mingled with fear. Rows of caged women waited, wrists zip-tied, some unconscious. Dina covered her mouth to stifle a sob. Riley planted a microtransmitter under the shed's breaker box, tapping twice to activate. Static answered in her earpiece, then Hank's voice.
Signal clear. 30 seconds to SWAT go.
A clatter outside. Riley peeked through a crack. The convoy was rolling in, 2 vans and a panel truck. Hayes himself stepped from the passenger seat, umbrella held aloft by an aide. Even in the dun light, his smile gleamed. He spoke to a foreman, gesturing toward the barn's loading ramp. Riley's skin crawled at his casual authority. Thunder boomed. The breaker box clicked and floodlights died, plunging the ranch into darkness. Hank's voice cut in.
Power drop received. Team moving.
Riley and Dina sprinted toward the caged women, snapping zip ties with bolt cutters taken from the wall. Chaos swelled as captives realized rescue might be real. A security guard barged in, flashlight slicing the dark. Riley lunged, disarming him with a wrenching twist and dropping him with a knee to the gut. His radio squawked, but she yanked the battery free. Outside, sirens wailed. SWAT vehicles punched through the main gate, spotlights flaring back to life under their own generators. Gunfire erupted, short and controlled. Hayes dashed toward the helicopter. Riley cursed, bolting after him across slick grass. Dina followed, grabbing a fallen rifle. Hayes's pilot spooled engines, rotors screaming. Riley reached the landing pad perimeter as Hayes climbed aboard. She raised her sidearm.
Federal agent,
She shouted.
step away.
Hayes half turned, rain streaking his face. He lifted a pearl-handled pistol and aimed. A shot cracked from behind Riley. Hayes staggered, weapon flying as a bullet slammed his shoulder. Dina lowered the rifle, breath ragged. SWAT agents swarmed, cuffing the senator and hauling the pilot out. Hayes glared at Riley, blood bright against his white shirt.
You think this ends anything?
He spat.
It ends tonight,
Riley said. Sirens, shouts, the whir of rotors winding down, all blended into a roar fading behind her heartbeat. She turned to Dina, who sagged with exhaustion. Riley caught her, steadying, then looked to the barn where medics escorted women to ambulances. Lightning forked across the sky, illuminating the ranch like a photograph of crime laid bare. Somewhere in the chaos, a news drone buzzed overhead, broadcasting the Empire's fall to every screen in the state. Federal floodlights burned through the pre-dawn haze as agents sealed evidence crates and loaded detainees onto buses. Riley sat on the tailgate of an ambulance, Kevlar stripped, ribs bandaged. Dina rested beside her, IV line snaking to a saline pouch. Hank approached, phone in hand.
Live feeds gone viral. Governor just suspended Hayes. DOJ wants you in D.C. yesterday.
Tell them tomorrow,
Riley said.
Tonight belongs to the survivors.
Across the field, Brixton, face bruised, arm in a sling, gave a weary salute. She had been found hogtied in the prison corridor, yet clung to consciousness long enough to delay the guards, buying Riley's escape. Witness protection awaited her now. A medic closed Dina's van door.
We'll monitor her at St. Luke's,
he said. Riley nodded, squeezing Dina's hand through the window. Convoy engines rumbled. As Dina's ambulance pulled away, Riley's earpiece crackled.
Commando Agent Dawson, Hayes wants to give a statement.
Riley crossed to a mesh-backed patrol car. Hayes sat cuffed, suit jacket hanging like defeated armor. Cameras flashed. He smirked through split lips.
Playing hero for the dead sister, Agent Dawson? Michelle was weak. The market only rewards strength.
Riley met his gaze, calm.
Markets change, empires crumble.
She stepped back as reporters shouted questions. The patrol car drove off, red-blue lights splashing color over the wet grass. Sunrise seeped gold along the horizon. Riley exhaled, shoulders loosening for the first time in weeks. Hank clapped her back gently.
Take a breath, Riley.
She started to answer when a courier approached, holding a sealed manila envelope.
Arrived for you just now, ma'am. No return address.
Riley opened it. Inside lay glossy photos of another detention center. Barbed wire, low barracks, and a typed line. Same money, same silence. She felt the weight of the pearls still in her pocket, remnants of the first camera. She touched them, then looked at Hank.
We're not done,
she said. Hank followed her gaze to the ambulance taillights vanishing toward the highway.
I'll brief the team.
Wind stirred the American flag atop the ranch's crooked pole. Riley pocketed the envelope and walked toward the command truck where new maps already glowed on the screen. Each red pin another shadow waiting to be burned away. The night was over, but the war for silence had just begun. The marble columns of the federal district courthouse rose like pale pillars of judgment against a sky the color of cold steel. Inside, pews overflowed with reporters, advocates, and former inmates clutching one another's hands. Riley Dawson took the witness stand, right hand raised, badge gleaming on her lapel for the first time since Rockford. The prosecutor's voice cut through the hush.
Agent Dawson, when did you first realize Senator Hayes was directing the trafficking network?
During the night of the raid at Hope Haven Ranch,
Riley replied, gaze steady.
He arrived on site to oversee the transfer of women. I witnessed him giving orders, and I retrieved ledgers showing state grants funneled into shell foundations under his control.
Senator Roderick Hayes sat 10 feet away. Tailored suit, flawless, arm in a sling, chin jutting upward as if the room reeked of something beneath him. To his right slumped former Officer Miller, wrists chained, eyes vacant after 3 weeks in solitary. Each time Riley spoke, Miller's shoulders twitched, a flinch he could no longer hide. The defense tried to paint her as reckless, an agent overstepping directives. Riley answered each insinuation with precise detail from the ghost tape, time codes, signatures, invoices. the distant scream of Dina Lopez echoing through a hallway microphone. The tape played on a screen taller than a man, its audio muffled yet unmistakable. In the gallery, some women covered their ears. Others stared straight ahead, daring the jury to look away. When cross-examination ended, Riley stepped down. Dina rose from the second row, leaning on a cane. She squeezed Riley's hand, whispering,
"Your sister would be proud."
Hours later, the jury returned, guilty on every count: conspiracy, human trafficking, racketeering, obstruction of justice. The judge pronounced sentences with a gavel strike like thunder. Miller, 30 years without parole. Hayes, 2 life terms, federal property seizure, political career erased in a breath. Reporters swarmed the steps as court adjourned. Mics thrust forward.
Agent Dawson, any comment on today's verdict?
Riley paused on the top stair. Flashbulbs flickered, white stars bursting. She spoke evenly.
Justice is a beginning, not an end.
Then she moved through the crowd, Hank Sullivan clearing a path, his broad shoulders deflecting cameras and questions alike. Late afternoon sunlight filtered through cypress trees as Riley knelt beside a modest headstone in Arlington Memorial. Michelle Dawson, 1986, 2019. Beloved sister. The air smelled of cut grass and distant river wind. She removed her FBI badge, its metal warm from her jacket, and laid it on the granite.
You were right,
Riley said, voice low.
Systems break. People bend them back.
Memories flickered. Michelle laughing over burnt coffee. Michelle hidden behind courthouse pillars after her own assault trial collapsed. Michelle found lifeless in a motel miles from home. Riley's hand trembled, then stilled. She set a single faux pearl next to the badge, the lens cracked yet gleaming.
You keep that,
she whispered.
I'll carry the next one.
Wind rustled leaves overhead, a soft reply. Evening drifted purple when Riley entered St. Luke's rehabilitation ward. Dina sat propped by a window, arm in a sling, bruises fading to pale ochre. A nurse finished attaching a blood pressure cuff and departed. Riley pulled up a chair.
Doc says I can testify in person next month,
Dina said, smile crooked.
Thinking afterward I might start a foundation for inmates, maybe name it after Hope Haven. That place taught me hope needs watchdogs.
You won't be short on stories,
Riley replied. Dina's gaze sharpened.
And you, back to spreadsheets and subpoenas?
Riley managed a half smile.
I'm taking a few weeks of administrative dust.
She didn't mention the envelope in her apartment desk or the coordinates of another prison in the desert. Dina reached, pressing Riley's fingers.
Don't forget you're human too, Agent Dawson.
Riley held her grip a moment longer than necessary, then rose.
Rest. The world's different now, thanks to you.
As she left, hospital corridor lights glinted off cameras bolted near the ceiling. She wondered how many souls had stared up at the red recording dot, praying someone would watch. Night settled over Washington when Riley stepped into the FBI press room. Plastic crates lined the walls, evidence from Rockford slated for archive. Atop one box lay Brixton's guard badge, number stamped crooked from years of use. Witness protection would rename her, erase the old identity like chalk washed from pavement. Riley tucked the badge into an evidence bag, sealed it, and labeled it, Courage 2025. Hank entered, sleeves rolled.
Paperwork mountain shrinking. You sure you won't head to the beach?
Sand's overrated,
Riley said. Hank nodded toward a TV in the corner. News anchors debated prison reform bills just introduced in 3 states. Images of Rockford flashed, rusted bars replaced, new wardens sworn in.
Looks like ripples,
Hank said.
Waves,
Riley corrected.
Ripples fade.
Hank studied her, then reached into his coat, producing a slim case. Inside lay a necklace, identical pearls, but the 8th one gleamed pristine. Microlens version 2.
Lab rushed it,
he said. Riley closed the case, feeling its weight.
Thank them.
She walked to the window, city lights glittering like ground stars. Somewhere across that sprawl, a silent building waited, walls thick with secrets. A chill of anticipation traced her spine. Fear mingled with purpose, the familiar twin of courage. Tomorrow she would brief directors, request an off-books assignment. Tonight she stood between victory and the next battle, heart steady, eyes clear, badge once again pinned above it. Moonlight found the pearls in her palm, painting them silver. She curled her fingers and turned from the glass. The night would not keep quiet long. Rain drummed softly against the window of Riley's new apartment, 7th floor, 2 blocks from the Potomac. Unpacked boxes formed a cardboard skyline in the living room. The single lamp cast halos across bare walls. She stood at the table, the manila envelope reopened under a cone of light. Photos showed a low-slung complex in the Arizona desert, sand rippling against chain-link fences. Inmates in orange scrubs queued beside a white bus with a private security logo. One image caught Riley's breath. A woman staring through mesh, lips stitched by fear into a flat line, the desert sun bleaching hope from her eyes. Riley flipped the photo. On the back, typed neatly, Mariposa Detention Facility. State contracts routed through Keystone Civic Services. Same corporation Hayes had used under another alias. Same invisible money. Another sheet listed guards' names, shift rotations, a mysterious program loose flagged in red. She spread a map beside the photos, marking Mariposa's coordinates with a pearl. Lines snaked outward, nearest highway, airstrip, medical subcontractor, political donors. Patterns emerged like bruises under fluorescent light. A soft beep signaled motion from the hallway camera she had installed. Package delivery. The courier had left a small cardboard box. Riley retrieved it, sliced tape. Inside rested a slim paperback. The Quiet American, by Graham Greene, first edition. No note. She thumbed pages until one fell open to a hollowed cavity containing a micro SIM and a keycard embossed with Keystone's logo. Someone wanted her inside. She tucked the items into her field bag, then opened a drawer, withdrawing the necklace Hank had delivered. She clasped it around her neck, pearls cool against skin. The clock read 2:17 a.m. She poured black coffee, sleep a distant luxury. On the TV, muted news tickers scrolled updates, sweeping audits of state prison funding, new whistleblower hotlines. Hayes transferred to a supermax for safety concerns. Riley's phone buzzed. Text from Hank. Briefing tomorrow, 0800. You bringing maps or miracles? She typed.
Both, and maybe a ghost.
She set the phone down, gaze drifting to a framed photo of Michelle, aged 6, missing front teeth, laughing in a sprinkler's mist. Memories pricked like nettles, painful yet alive. Riley exhaled. Her apartment's security camera light blinked red, tracking. She spoke to it, voice calm.
Package received. Target identified. Preparation underway.
She glanced at the map again, finger tapping Mariposa. Outside, rain slowed, tapping less insistently, as if conceding the night. Dawn tinted the sky lavender when Riley walked onto the training range behind Quantico. The smell of damp earth rose with mist. Hank waited beside a table of gear. Desert-toned uniforms, forged ID cards, a tablet flickering satellite feeds of Mariposa.
Sleep?
He asked.
Tomorrow.
He handed her a dossier-stamped preliminary authorization.
Director Keller approved probative recon. 2-agent team. We go as Keystone compliance auditors.
Who's my second?
Riley asked.
Me?
Riley raised an eyebrow. Hank shrugged.
You collect ghosts. Someone has to watch your back.
She scanned the dossier. Mariposa's warden, Sylvia Cortez, ex-military, spotless record. Private medical wing rumored off-limits to inspectors. Program Luz listed as vocational rehab, unspecified.
Same blueprint,
Riley murmured. Hank nodded.
Brixton's testimony suggests these centers coordinate shipments across state lines. Mariposa is Hub West.
Riley touched the 8th pearl at her throat, feeling the micro-camera hum alive. Wind rustled nearby pines.
We leave in 48 hours,
Hank said. Riley holstered her sidearm, eyes on the horizon where sunrise peeled back the last veil of night.
They think silence protects them.
Hank zipped a duffel.
Then let's teach them echo.
That evening, she visited St. Luke's once more. Dina sat in a wheelchair by the garden window, sunlight painting her hair copper.
Rumor says you're heading to Arizona,
Dina said, eyes glinting. Riley smiled faintly.
Rumors travel faster than evidence.
Just remember, justice is a beginning, not an end,
Dina quoted, teasing. Riley squeezed her shoulder.
I intend to repeat myself.
She walked out as hospital lights flickered on. The day nurse waved. Riley returned the gesture, pearls catching the ceiling glow. Night again, apartment quiet. Riley set her field bag by the door, boots polished, credentials tucked inside. She knelt before a slim safe, dialed the code, and retrieved her badge. She studied its silver face, then clipped it into the bag's inner pocket. In undercover work, truth traveled too. Her phone chimed once more, an unknown number sending a single line of text.
Are you ready to live among monsters again?
Riley's answer was neither hesitant nor heroic. She simply typed back,
Always.
She slipped the phone away, turned off the lamp, and let darkness settle. Outside, the city hummed, unaware another quiet war was about to start. Within that hush, Riley Dawson breathed steady, eyes adjusting, listening for the first crack in the next wall of silence. Somewhere a clock struck midnight. She whispered to the room, to Michelle, to every unseen ear,
Let's begin again.